Hello and welcome to the light-hearted episode of Burning Questions. Hi Alex, how's Charlene? Hi Diego. You can all say hi back in, like a choir. So guys, today we're talking about it's a little interesting what you guys were talking about, and we have a different view from one of our colleagues, from Gabriel. And he was very kind to share his thoughts with us via a quote. So this is what his quote says. It's very interesting. Majority youth unemployment will persist as long as property rights are threatened by Gucci-slinging, looting racial nationalists. Guys, I don't know how I feel about this quote. And as always, I always have a lot to say, but let's open it up. Let's start with Sholin. Sholin, Gucci-slinging, looting racial nationalists. What do you think about this quote?
Yeah, so absolutely, I can't agree with Gabriel more. And in this quote, the Gucci-slinging, looting racial nationalists that he's referring to are the likes of some of our political elite, like the EFF and ANC, who pretend to be fighters for the people, yet tend to walk around with the overalls in Parliament, but behind the scenes walk around with Gucci and Louis Vuitton and the latest Mercedes-Benz, which is pretty ironic, in my opinion.
But drip is forever. Serving the people is temporary,
Even for
Fixing potholes is temporary.
Even for Malema, drip is forever. You're right, Mbali.
Yeah, definitely. Alex, your thoughts before we go into the comments.
Yeah, I think what's important to acknowledge in Gabriel's quote is the idea of property rights. He says, property rights will remain threatened by, essentially race nationalists who want to nationalize the land, they want to nationalize the healthcare, they want to nationalize banks, they want to nationalize mines. So essentially what they want to do, and I think especially going on what we discussed earlier in Freedom Fanatics, is that they want to take control away from people. And what we've just realized is that, people need more control over what is theirs. Yeah. So if people have ownership, they're more likely to take care of what's around them. And we can see that when the state owns and manages stuff, particularly in South Africa, and things fall apart. So I think Gabriel's spot on there.
Yeah, definitely. Diego, maybe let me have your thoughts there quickly.
Yeah, well, I was about to say that no one wants to invest in a country whereby property rights are shaky. You are not really sure where things stand in terms of property rights. So that's been part of the problem in South Africa. Investors are quite hesitant to invest in the South African economy, given all these conversations taking place around property rights. And most concerning is that the governing party at its last policy conference adopted land expropriation without compensation as a policy position that they would implement in government. So as an investor, you didn't want to invest in a country whereby you could put your money today, and wake up the next day with everything taken by the government and belonging to the government, including investments that you have made. So it's no surprise that unemployment keeps on rising, because really investors do not have confidence in the South African economy and how things are being carried out in the country. Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Let's go to what the people think. People don't hesitate sharing what they think about our codes. It's very nice to see. So this one is from Sizwe, and Sizwe says, beneficiaries of apartheid systems, as much as they inherited assets illegally obtained by their forefathers, are guilty of inheriting stolen properties. Hey, man. Alex, go for it.
Damn.
That was weird. Okay, but yes, Alex, let's go.
No. That's it's a tough one. That's the problem with. It's frustrating with the conversation around property rights. I mean, it's fair enough that it gets drawn back to dispossession, land dispossession in the past, previous injustices, given our history of race-based oppression. But it just goes to show how important property rights are. So I think to kind of touch on what Sizwe is saying is the I understand the problem is that the government has failed in its restorative justice project of land restitution. I believe restitution and redistribution are two different things. In the whole land restitution process is flawed, and I think that's definitely something that people should hold the ANC government to account 100%. But I think what's important to recognize is what the government's intentions are. As Tiako mentions, with such adopting a policy, or at least the ANC adopting the policy and trying to put it through Parliament of expropriation, and vying for one of the proposals was for state custodianship. So ultimately, we just need to be very aware of government actions when it comes to property rights. And if the state owns everything, everyone loses. So then there'll be no restorative justice for everyone, and it's just going to perpetuate those forces that Sizwe points out.
Yeah, if I can add on to Alex's point, what we also saw is that although the intentions of it might be might appear good, as in we need to rectify an injustice of the past through going through this land reform process. Something that we need to be wary of is how it is done. Because if we look at in Zimbabwe, when Robert Mugabe and his clique decided that, we need to go on a land reform process. And it was not the ordinary Zimbabwean that actually, benefited from this, but he instead prioritized giving land to one of his compatriots, the people around him. That's where he was actually focused on giving land. So that's why we need to be very careful when people come with promises, but they don't actually go through with what they say. So that would be a cause for concern.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's go to the last comment from Kolekile, and this one just starts off randomly or weirdly. It says, yet we seem not to believe in restorative justice regarding property injustices of the past. ! Question mark. Diego, what are your thoughts there? Those are important,
Well, we have laws. We have government laws that are there to assist with restoring justice to those that an injustice was done upon in the past. But unfortunately, the government of the day has not been working hard enough to ensure that they do restore those properties back to their rightful owners in instances whereby land was indeed stolen. But I think the property issue is very complex. It would require a much lengthier conversation, given that my own belief is that we can't even look at, for example, land that we can't begin the conversation at the point whereby land was stolen by white people when they arrived in South Africa, and instances whereby land was stolen. Remember that not all land that white people occupy in South Africa or have occupied in South Africa was stolen land. Some of the land was vacant, some of the land was bought. Of course, some of the land was stolen. But as well, even before white people arrived in South Africa, there are instances whereby black people amongst themselves had stolen land from each other. And in an area like Ramalepo, here in Limpopo, you have Kgoshi Molepo, who's the king of Ramalepo. But if you go there and have conversations with elders in the community, they'll tell you that this is not the original king. Before this king, there was another king. This one's came through, fought that one, and took over the kingdom. So it's a very complex matter that must be analyzed thoroughly, and context is everything as well. You must analyze it looking at the past context as well, whereby conquering communities was the order of the day. One king conquering another king was the order of the day. That's how things were done. And it seems to be a shocking thing when white people came into South Africa and conquered black people, whereas it's something that has always been happening. Tribes always conquered each other. The issue seems that it's people of a different race who came and conquered, but there
Definitely. The
was never
color
an
is now
issue.
different.
Yeah, so if we are going to discuss this, I think we must start it at that very point and start with tribal wars, how land was stolen then, and come with it, white people and everything, understanding the context of what was the order of the day at the time. So yeah, we'll need a much lengthier discussion around this.
I'm ready. When can we schedule a history, history podcast, how the land was stolen? Sholan, do you have anything to say?
Yes, I wanted to add is that we've seen how the state or the government cannot even run a proper electricity supply, run proper water supply, get rid of our sewage, provide us with safety and security. Why would you trust them to manage land, a crucial, important
Bro.
part of our economy? If they can't even run our electricity, why would they be able to run our land?
I have no idea how we believe in them. But you know what? A little hope will never
I
kill
think another,
anyone.
and I think in addition, Mbali, another discussion we should perhaps have at a later stage is a very discussion around kings and why we have kings in a democracy. Some of these kings, like I said, came through taking over from other people through wars, fights, and everything. Surely, if we have kings in today's state, I should be able to go and kill the king of the Zulu people right now and take over from him and become a
please.
king. If
I'm
in
very
some instances that's
tribalist.
how. No, well, I'm giving you this that
That
these
is a
people were
joke,
not
guys.
born. Kings were not born with this thing. Some of them took it over from someone. Surely, if it's something that we're continuing with in a democracy, then I should be allowed right now to go and slaughter a king and take over their kingdom. If it's a system that we're continuing with and recognizing these people as official kings, they became official kings through killing. Surely we should be able to remove them from the seats through killing. But that's a discussion for another day. It does link with the
Not
discussion
through
we're having
killing,
now.
but
Property rights.
other ways.
Mbali,
We can remove them in other
Well,
ways.
it's how it happened.
if I can just add some fuel to that fire, I think what's important that Tiago points to is this debate has nuance. You can't just be ahistorical and look at it through one lens.
Yeah,
You've got to look at it through a tribal lens. You've got to look at it South African history lens. And also, that's the thing. I think you're mentioning like the tribal authorities. The idea of a title deed is not necessarily something that runs rampant through South Africa, but it is the essence of property ownership, especially when it comes to land. So I think it's a great precedent that's been set, and I think it's definitely a conversation that can be had. And I think that's really what you're just trying to do here at FAN is have these conversations. So I think it's awesome that we do get this feedback and we have such awesome engagement from our fans, especially on Facebook.
Yeah, from our fans. Get it? You guys get it? Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for this discussion. And you at home, I hope you enjoyed it and you learned a thing or two from this episode. And do remember, your freedom is worth fighting for.